Good morning. I'm going to read to you today for Read Aloud, Delaware. And the name of the book I'm reading is No Jumping on the Bed. Now, I don't know if you've ever jumped on the bed, but if you haven't, this story will teach you something about it. The author is Ted Arnold, and since he is a painter, he also painted the illustrations. So you'll enjoy some good pictures along the way as well. This book was written for his son Walter, and so Walter plays a big part in the book. In his bedroom near the top floor of a tall apartment building, Walter was getting ready for bed. Before turning out the light, his father said, If I've told you once, I've told you a million times, no jumping on the bed. Look what he's doing. He's jumping on the bed. Now lie down and go to sleep. One day it'll crash right through the floor if you don't stop. Just one more time, asked Walter. But instead he plopped down on his pillow and squeezed his eyes shut. Good night, said his father. He turned off the light and pulled the door almost closed. The room was dark and quiet, and so there's good night, Father, and sleepyhead Walter. Except the quiet was broken by a soft thump, thump, thump coming from the room above. That's Delbert. Upstairs, thought Walter. He switched on his bedside lamp. If Delbert can jump on his bed, so can I. Walter bounced higher and higher. On his last jump, his hair brushed the ceiling. But when he came back down, his mattress creaked, the floor cracked, and the whole bed tipped sideways. Then down through the floor fell Walter, bed and all. There he goes, right headed for the floor and below. Now, it happened that Walter's bedroom was directly above Miss Hattie's dining room. She was more than a little surprised when a bed fell through her ceiling and Walter landed in her plate of spaghetti and meatballs. I was not expecting company for dinner, she mumbled with a mouthful of meatballs. But there she has company right in the middle of her plate. Said Walter. Spaghetti is my all-time favorite. But before he could eat, his bed smashed through the table and kept right on crashing down through the floor. Down and down fell Walter, Miss Hattie, the plate of spaghetti, the bed, and all. And there they go, right through the floor. Miss Hattie's dining room was above Mr. Matty's TV room. Mr. Matty didn't even notice a bed falling through his ceiling until a meatball bounced off his head. Miss Hattie tumbled into his lap, and Walter splashed into his aquarium. I've already had my bath tonight, said Walter. He wanted to stay and watch the monsters on TV, but his bed crunched through the floor, taking the TV with it. Look, there's the meatball bouncing off the head of Mr. Matty, and there they go. Oh, there he has a lapful of Miss Hattie. Down and down fell Walter, Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, the TV, the spaghetti, the bed, and all. Walter's Aunt Batty had just moved into the building. She was still unpacking when Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, and a dripping wet Walter tumbled through the ceiling right into a box containing her rare Patagonian stamp collection. They are a mess. There are a lot of people in a pile. When he burst through the bottom of the box, Walter was a sticky mess. Sticky mess indeed. "I see you've started collecting stamps," said Aunt Batty, as she followed Walter through the new hole in her floor. Down and down fell Walter, Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, Aunt Batty, the stamp collection, the TV, spaghetti, the bed, and all. Patty and Natty had worked 3 days building their dream house with blocks. Afraid that Fatty Cat might knock something over, they carefully shooed her out for the night. Then the upstairs neighbors came through the ceiling. "Excuse us," said Walter, remembering his manners. "We won't be staying long." The words were barely past his lips when Walter's bed bashed through the floor and continued on its way. He certainly made a mess of their wonderful dream house. Down and down fell Walter, Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, Aunt Batty, Patty, Natty, Fatty the cat, the stamps, the TV, the spaghetti, the bed, and all. The last thing Mr. Hanratty ever expected to see was a bed coming through his studio's ceiling, followed by nearly everyone in the building. And there he is, beginning to paint a picture. He's a painter. "If I had known you wanted to see my paintings," he said, "I would have tidied up a bit." But they never once paused to admire Mr. Hanratty's colorful artwork. They were too busy splashing in his cans of paint. Then his floor caved in, and everyone followed Walter's bed down through the hole. Down and down fell Walter, Miss Hattie, Mr. Matty, Aunt Patty, Patty and Natty, Mr. Hanratty, Fat Cat, 17 cans of paint, the stamps, the TV, the spaghetti, the bed, and all. Maestro Ferlingatti and his string quartet were astonished by the colorful crowd that fell from the ceiling. "Look how many came!" And there's his string quartet and the maestro with his baton in his hand. The maestro loved an audience, even if they dropped in unannounced. But when Walter's bed smashed through the floor and paint splattered everywhere, the maestro wished his audience would leave. And so they did, along with his string quartet. Maestro Ferlangatti's practice room floor was also the basement ceiling. It was dark and quiet as midnight down there in the basement. Walter squeezed his eyes closed and tumbled through the darkness until he landed on something soft. He opened his eyes. Everything was in its place. His bedroom lights were out. The door was almost closed, and through it, Walter could hear his mother and father talking quietly. "No more jumping on the bed for me," mumbled Walter as he lay back down to sleep. And there he is, getting ready to go back to sleep. Suddenly, he heard a creak. The ceiling cracked, and down came Delbert, bed and all. Down and down fell Delbert. The end.